I'm Dave Albrechta. This is Lawyers as Healers, where I explore how lawyers are becoming healers of human conflict. All right, welcome back to Lawyers as Healers. Today, I am joined by Hillary Wandler. Hillary's a lawyer and a law professor, and she teaches at Montana's only school of law in Missoula, Montana. She teaches legal analysis, legal writing, and also about disability benefits for military veterans, and also directs the in-house Veterans Advocacy Clinic. So thanks for joining me, Hillary. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about it too.
Yeah. And I'll also add a side note, which is some context on how we met, which was through the Center for Understanding and Conflict training out in California, I guess a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, 2 falls ago, which doesn't seem possible, but is real.
I know. Time flies.
Yeah.
So really excited to chat with you just about these topics and get your insight. But before we kind of dive into the meat of the topic, just curious to hear about your background. I'm always curious to know how people got into their law career and how what kind of drove you to do that, or what motivated you to go to law school, and then just a snapshot of how you got where you are today in terms of teaching and all the like.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, we were having a conversation about this over the weekend. I was with a bunch of family members, and my mom always does these conversation cards around the dinner table, which sounds really dorky, but turns out to be super fun. And the question was, what did you want to be when you were a child? And it was really fun to hear my dad said firefighter, and that's literally the first time I've ever heard him say that before.
Oh, how interesting.
And so I had no idea that was his life's goal.
Yeah.
My daughter's was a cheese factory worker and an ambulance driver, but she was in a Spanish immersion school, and so she felt she had to do those things in Mexico.
Yeah.
Really odd. Hers was the oddest one. And
Funny.
what my answer was, I don't really vividly remember a specific profession, but I remember being extremely drawn to from like my earliest, real memories to advocacy, like fighting for someone.
Yeah.
And I use the word fighting because that really was kind of my thought pattern was I'm going to be this, I was drawn to being someone's like advocate, like a warrior in some respects,
Yeah, you're just someone's champion, right?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
champion. Yeah. And it's something deep in my, like, who I am. And I know that having unpacked this with various people, including probably you and Malin Johnson and, therapists over the years,
Sure.
this is like something about me. And I've come to realize, I think some professions talk about, first do no harm or do no harm as the primary goal. And for me, even before I knew about lawyering as a profession or anything like that, that concept wasn't enough for me for some reason. It was not just do no harm, although that's like maybe a really important part of it, but it's do good, help. There's this helping part of me that's just core. And eventually that led to law school. There were a few twists and turns. I didn't go straight to law school. I did some things in between college and law school, all of which, though, bent toward an advocacy role. And so lawyering became a thing that felt really natural to go toward at that point. Yeah. And then I feel like at that point, I felt like I got on a train that was going in a direction, and it was like, where is this? I don't really agree with where this is going, but I'm on the train now and it's moving and I can't see a way of getting off, if that makes sense. And so
Yeah.
because of, academic performance, it was you're clerking for this judge, and then it's, oh, because you clerked for that judge, you should clerk for this judge. And then it's, oh, because you did that, you should work for this law firm.
Yeah.
It's one of the best law firms. And it's all this, that process was like, it felt very gratifying to be
Mhm.
getting those, positions that are great, right?
Yeah. It's
And
recognition of
yeah,
of your achievements. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It felt there's something about that that's very tempting. And so moving into it, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And I didn't pause enough. I didn't stop and think, is this why you started this thing? Are you on the right train, basically? And turns out I wasn't. I did
Mm.
not feel the type of litigation I was in was connecting in any way to my core purpose. Felt like there was a lack of mentorship and meaning in the work. And
Mm.
so eventually, when a former professor reached out and really wanted me to apply for a faculty position, it felt both like a way into something new and potentially um, opportunity for growth and meaning, and out of something that felt very wrong for it. It was not a good fit for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I went.
Yeah. There's a lot of familiarity there. That
Yeah.
speaking about that train that you can't get off of, or that you're on. I mean, the metaphor is so good because, it's hard to stop a train. It's hard to tell how you get on it or where you are on it. There's so many things about it that
So
I think a
true.
lot of
Yeah.
lawyers can relate to.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm just curious, what areas were you practicing in when you were litigating?
It was a traditional defense firm. I worked a lot in insurance defense while I
Mm.
was there. I did some um, work comp stuff, which was interesting and kind of felt a little closer to what would have felt like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here, why we're doing this. And then I was able to, because the firm was a larger firm, they kind of allowed you to do small cases for individuals on a pro bono basis. And I had a couple of those, and they were really what, that was the fire for me. I was like, this is amazing. I love
Mm.
this. It's messy and interesting and so challenging because you're working with a variety of humans who are in severe conflict situations. I mean,
Yeah.
I had, a meeting with a small board of directors that was in like the most intense conflict I
Yeah.
had at that point ever encountered. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is where the real work is for the lawyer,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So having experienced that, I realized too, like this is a fraction of what this firm does, and it's only by acquiescence, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yes, you
Right.
can do that with a
You
little bit
may.
of your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was also a red flag, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I'm in the wrong place.
Right, right. Well, you answered one of the directions I wanted to go with you, but I'll kind of dig a little deeper on it. I wondered whether it was, some people who experience this, I think, this kind of, I don't know, misalignment or feeling like you're in the wrong place. I think that can come from the structure of the firm or it just kind of demands and hours and all the stuff, kind of more, I don't know, logistical type things, or it can come from the actual work you're doing and, what the substance is of the work or a mixture of both. And I was going to ask you like what was causing your feeling like you were in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
I think you
Mm-hmm.
kind of answered it, but is there anything like, or and maybe was there like a moment where you realized it, or did it kind of build over time?
It built over time.
Yeah.
I do think some of what happens in a traditional litigation firm when you're a new associate was also at play. I
Yeah.
had a very small child.
Mm,
I had negotiated 80% billables on the way in the door. I was
yeah.
told, we've never done this before.
Mm.
Um, which, in hindsight, I think, really? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Right.
that accurate? You have
Uh-huh.
women who are partners. Does that mean they never asked for any accommodation to life,
Right. Right.
Or even, anybody in the firm? And maybe that's true, but that also would be a huge red flag. So I was
Yeah.
kind of cutting edge on saying, maybe part of my life should take precedent over some
Mm,
of what I do here.
yeah.
So some of that was at play. We had a big firm meeting. I mean, if I'm thinking of one like crystallized moment, and by then I had already started mentally and emotionally kind of moving out.
Yeah.
But there was a big all firm meeting, all lawyer meeting of the firm. And the managing partner got up and said, some of our new or our associates are working a lot in the night so that they can come in a little later during the day. And I just want to make clear that we're not like a night school here. So we need to be in the office during regular business hour. And of course, there were only a couple of us who were doing that by necessity because of small
Yeah.
children. And so it was very clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were some of those things, it wasn't all the type of work. It was also some of the culture.
Right. Right. Yeah. Which is, yeah, that kind of thing's tough at a big firm. I've not had that experience, but I also have had the experience of the kind of the small firm experience where the demands of the work kind of become that boss, right? And the
Yes.
drives, even though I was, I was my own boss,
Yeah.
the work kind of demands that these kind of lifestyles or choices you have to make and
Mhm.
things you've got to sacrifice and
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah.
interesting the parallels between the two, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Um,
I wonder sometimes, I mean, you probably had this experience too where I remember a time where the partner I was working with made me start writing and try and finish a brief while I was at my youngest sister's wedding. And
yeah,
so I just remember hearing everyone outside
yeah,
of the room, just raucous fun and connection. And I'm locked in the back room writing a brief. And it was just, I guess I have to do this.
yeah.
And that's just one of several examples of that kind of thing. And I feel like maybe you felt that too.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of examples. That I mean, actually, I don't talk about that as much as I probably should when I'm explaining what led me to begin questioning what I was up to. But yeah, there were a series of family vacations, all within a couple of years towards the end of my kind of full load of litigation work, and all of them got interrupted. And it was by judges or opposing counsel who, something, and whether it's intentional or not, I can never say, but it's always, you can't help but look at that and say, everyone knew I was on vacation. They knew I was going to be out. And all of a sudden the emergency motion gets filed and I have to
Mhm.
respond within a week
Yeah.
or there's a emergency hearing or something I've got to appear for. And so there were like 3 or 4 vacations in a row that all got interrupted by that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And same thing. I remember being in the back room, hearing everybody else out having fun and I'm
Yeah.
stuck writing a response to a motion to dismiss or whatever it
Yes.
is, and you're
Yes.
just like, "What is this?" You know?
Why am I what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's interesting 'cause, there's just and this is a broader commentary, I think, on the system as a whole,
Mhm.
not necessarily big firm culture or sole practitioner lifestyle. There's just this, like, demand of it all that
Yeah.
it's very unforgiving. Um, I practice some disability law too, so talking about accommodations is very kind of prescient for me, and, like,
Yeah.
there's no accommodations, like, it doesn't matter what you have going on, the
Mhm.
system demands your attention, it demands it
Mhm.
now, you have no option, and that's
Mhm.
tough, it's a tough way to live,
Mhm. It
yeah.
really is, and it if I was pondering this the other day, I've been listening to this book. I think the title is How to Clean House While Drowning. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, but I like that title.
Um,
Yeah.
it's really interesting, but one of the lines one of the lines she says early in the book is, um, "Dishes are morally neutral."
Okay, yeah.
And as soon as she said that, like, this huge light bulb went off
Yeah,
for me, like, they actually are.
yeah,
But I walk around with this moral judgment, and
yeah,
I think, sure, it came from how I grew up, but it didn't start there, that came from
yes,
how they grew up, um, and I started kinda connecting it to my view of the legal profession because there are some ways I think that we are moralizing the wrong things in this
yes,
profession.
yeah,
Like, we heighten to this with this kind of moral judgment, this idea of efficiency. We do it with responsiveness. I mean, these are ideas that maybe they're, in some contexts, sure, good.
yeah,
Not in all contexts, but I think the legal profession has gotten into a place where they are always good. And
yeah,
they're like the moral absolute, right? And so if you aren't responsive because you're on vacation with your family,
yeah,
the judge, the opposing counsel, maybe even your client are passing judgment on you. Um,
yeah,
if you're less efficient because you're taking a little more care with an issue, same
yeah,
thing, right? And it
yeah,
just made me start thinking, I mean, this is a half, not even half baked, it's like a quarter baked thought, but
yeah,
just started thinking, what are we doing with these things? And is there another way to see it, you know?
yeah. I love this. This is bringing up all kinds of stuff for me. As you were saying that, I was thinking back to COVID.
Mm.
And I had a lot of litigation. I had a very full plate when COVID hit, and it got even more full because we practiced employment law. So there was just this
Oh, yeah, that
huge
was huge.
surge, yeah, of new laws, and you're trying to figure out all there's new federal laws, new state laws. All these clients are calling, trying to figure out what to do, and wage
Yeah.
claims, and um and at the same time, I had a really active docket already that wasn't related to COVID cases, and I remember, there was this there was, like, this opening because the federal courts were putting out at that point, I was only practicing federal court, and the judges were putting out these memos when COVID hit that would reflect whatever the new lockdowns were and
Yeah.
trying
Yep.
to, adjust their local rules and everything. And, they opened the door for more, motions for extensions of time, basically
Oh,
saying, "We're
yeah.
gonna give everybody a break," and,
Yep.
all this stuff, and I remember, for that year and a half or so, filing a lot of those, and a lot of them were around like, "Hey, I'm working out of my little bedroom, my kids are here, there's no childcare, we're
Mhm.
balancing this the best we can."
Yep.
And you still had to do that. There wasn't like "Hey, we're just gonna cut everyone some slack here." You still had to file the 10-page, you know, consent motion asking,
Right.
and even though everybody agrees, you still gotta do
Yeah.
the work.
Yeah.
And, um, and I remember the shift. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I remember when the courts started denying them. Um,
Oh, yep.
and it
Yes.
wasn't quite over yet, but they started saying like they were just kind of like enough of this stuff.
Mhm.
Like we're
Mhm.
tired of it. You got to start doing work. And we want it, not that we weren't doing, but you got to start doing it on our schedule.
Mhm.
And yeah, it really goes to this broader. There was this moment of forgiveness. There was this kind of blip in time where I felt like,
Oh,
okay, I've got some breathing room. I know that if I can't get this in, I'm gonna get the extension.
Mhm.
Um, and it was nice because I was able to prioritize being with my kids and making sure they were taken care of. And and the work kind of took a back seat for a second.
Yep.
It was fleeting.
Fleeting.
Um, but like, and everyone was on the same page. Like opposing counsel was being very
Yep.
forgiving, and
Mhm.
what an interesting, almost a glimpse of what it could be, because
A
the
glimpse.
the
Yeah.
cases still
Yeah.
moved forward. Everything was still happening.
Yeah.
But there was just an easing up of expectations,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
yeah, and I think it speaks to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and yet maybe not even far enough, right? Like you said,
Yeah,
why do I
totally.
have to file this?
I know.
There should have been an electronic check mark that you could have
That's
just
right.
checked and said, "I
Yes,
have all the things happening."
that's right.
And really no one in this system should care whether that's true.
I know.
Like, it
I
should
know.
just be, "That's fine,"
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we don't do that for each other.
I think it speaks to this broader kind of, I don't know if it's societal, cultural values, if it's limited to the legal profession, but
Yeah.
this push, and I think it all ties back to, and I think this is part of what you're talking about earlier, this kind of the prestige of the profession. You get very caught up in,
Yeah.
I'm being recognized and I'm important and I've got lots of clients, and it just kind of snowballs.
It does.
Um,
Yeah, there's a thread of ambition in the legal profession that carries nearly everyone. It's the rare
yeah,
person I've seen who's able to hold that off. I see a
yeah,
new crop of students every
right,
fall, at the law school. There are a few who've come through that I can think of who just were different from the first step in the door.
yeah,
And you could sense it's not like they're abdicating responsibility in a harmful way. It's like they're saying, I know why I'm here. And it
mm,
really isn't connected to any of that.
yeah,
Um, and they operate in a different way in law school. And they're going to operate in a different way when they enter the profession. But like I
yeah,
said, it's such a tiny fraction
right.
who can do that.
Do you talk to students about any of this, what we've just talked about, and how to avoid what the experiences that we've had, or
I've
how to
had
prepare for it? Or,
Yeah, yeah. I've had lots of conversations, just varied depending on the student, but just I think over time my conversations has shifted from here's how you can succeed in the
mm,
way that everyone thinks success looks,
yeah,
so
right.
how you can look like that, um, and have now largely shifted to what are you doing here?
Mm, yeah,
And maybe I should
yeah,
ask my mom's question of like, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
yeah,
Let's
right.
talk about that. Because if it was a firefighter, why, right?
Yeah,
If it
yes,
was a cheese factory worker, why?
yeah,
What drew you to that other than your, tour of the Tillamook cheese factory? Um, is there like a making part of you that we should explore? But
yeah,
I
right.
think, I think, um, there's a lot. It feels like there's a lot you can. I don't know if there are all these words coming through my head and I'm not picking the right one. Like a lot you can survive, a lot you can sustain, a lot you can do, a lot of hard things that you can do if what you're doing means something.
Yeah,
And that, I think, is what I want to talk to law students about, because it's going to be
Yes.
hard in all these different ways. Even if you're one of those unique people who come in with a really clear vision of who you are and who you can be in this profession, it's still going to be hard. You're going to be
Yeah.
swimming upstream at certain times, and it's not going to feel good. It'll be uncomfortable. But if this connects, this thing you're doing connects to something in your core, um, you can, you can take it. You can take
Yeah.
that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when you're doing anything that is values aligned and allows you
Yes.
to demonstrate who you are uh,
Yeah.
in your heart and soul, at your core, whatever wherever that is
Yeah.
for you. If you're doing that, it makes you more resilient. You can handle,
Oh, yeah.
you can handle more.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you find, you
yeah,
said the coaching is really interesting
yeah,
in a new way? Is there, what about that connects to, I mean, what did
yeah.
you want to do when you were a child?
I,
We
well,
haven't talked about that.
it's a good question. I have very vivid memories of pretending to be a lawyer when I was five,
Oh,
6 years old.
hmm.
My dad was a lawyer, and he had a
Okay.
home office and he worked out of
Yeah.
the house a lot. And I watched him work with clients, and I would go in and pretend I would get a legal pad and scratch notes and pretend I'm meeting with my stuffed animal clients. And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
I
I
have
love
these
that.
memories, but I was recently reflecting on that, and I actually did an earlier solo episode on this where I've realized lately that when I was pretending to be a lawyer, that's all it was. It was me meeting with a client, my pretend client, and hearing their
Yeah.
story and writing it down, and that was
Mm,
it. I
that's it.
never I never pretended to go to court or go to trial, or I wasn't advocating. It was just meeting with people.
Yep.
Um and so I had that realization very recently where I'm like, oh, I've always told myself I've always wanted to be a lawyer, which to some degree is true, but it was like my childhood version of what a lawyer was just all I saw was my dad meeting with people, and most times they seemed better when they left, and
Yes.
that seemed like he was helping them, and
Yes.
that's what I really liked and attached to, which isn't, that could be anything. Could be therapy, coaching. I mean, there's all these professions that look like that without the
That's right.
advocacy part, right?
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
I also went through a stint where wanted to be a photojournalist, so that was
Oh, nice.
just a
Also cool.
side note. Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So yeah, there's the to answer your other question, the coaching is all about this.
right.
It's what really attracted me to it, and it's also a piece that I think is really missing in our interaction as lawyers with clients, because
Hmm.
a lot of what I was experiencing as a sole practitioner was my clients were burning out. Like, clients would burn out on, and people come in, I think most people believe from media or whatever that they're going to hire the lawyer, and in a month they're going to be in trial, and they're going to have their day in court, and it's
Hmm.
quick. And
Hmm.
no matter how many times you tell people this could take 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
they don't really it's hard to understand what that means and what that feels
Yeah.
like to litigate for that long.
That's right.
And so many times I'd have clients come in a year, 2 years in, and they're like, "I don't care about this anymore. My
Yes.
my life has moved on. This is in the
Hmm.
past. I've got a new partner. I've got a new job, a new
Yeah.
house, whatever. I'm done with this." And I'd have to be like, "Sorry, we're in too deep. We
Yeah.
can't just let this go."
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that was largely because I had put too much
That's
time
right.
and money into it that I can't afford to just walk away from it. And so it's
That's
the
right.
economics and the business model.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and so what I've noticed, reflecting back on that, why the coaching is so cool is I think that happens, burnout in whatever form happens when you're not values aligned.
That's so
And so I
true.
think it's a reflection of a client who didn't really want to do it in the first place,
Hmm.
didn't really want to be in litigation at all.
Hmm.
And that catches up with you eventually.
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
And I think as lawyers, we can do a better job in that early intake process of really confirming, hey, like, who are you? What are your values? Does this path align with who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And that answers the question of, are you going to have the staying power to get through this? And are
Mm-hmm.
you going to have the resiliency to, because it's just like what you're talking about with law school. It's like, it's going to be hard. There's going to be moments
That's right.
where
Mm-hmm.
it's not fun. And so that's the coaching piece. Yeah. Very much aligns with all this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was, I, I was, I've had some major medical things in my life,
Mm.
cancer twice. And
Yeah.
there was a period after the second time that I was thinking, I need to write a book that's titled There Will Be Pain, because
Yeah.
there's
Yes.
something about
Yeah.
knowing the hard things are on the path
Yeah.
that helps. And there's
Mm-hmm.
something about being completely oblivious to the possibility of those things that really, really hurts. Like when they
Yeah.
take you by completely by surprise, and you're like, should I have seen this? Probably. If someone had just said, this is part of the journey,
Yes.
perhaps that would have felt different.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you asked me about, are you talking to students about these hard things? I think that's a really important question. And I've
Mm.
actually said to students since then, there will be pain. Let's talk about it. You
Yeah.
know, if you go this direction, here are some things you might think, feel, encounter, need to move through.
Yes.
Or even here we are in law school. It's not all delightful. I
Yeah.
wish it was, but it isn't. Let's talk about the ways that it's not.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and maybe that would change things. There are some ways, though, that I think you and I both want it to be different, in that we'd like to move some of the painful things off the path. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's kind of doing both at the same time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
There's pain that isn't, there's like unnecessary pain, things that cause pain that are unnecessary that just shouldn't be there. And then there's
Yep.
things that are, you gotta go through it,
You just have to. Yeah.
and there's no way through it. And it's in some ways it's necessary, because when you go through that, you come out on the other side stronger
Mm-hmm.
and probably hopefully grow from it and all the stuff.
Yes. Right.
But there's a lot in the legal process anyway that feels like unnecessary pain.
Mm-hmm.
um, that's
That's
just there for
exactly right.
just for the sake of it,
Right.
not for any real reason.
Yeah. 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 And that I think it's really important, like you said, to do both,
Yeah.
to talk about it and counter or confront it, and then also work to identify through the why question, why is this the way it
Yeah.
is?
Right.
Does it have to be this way?
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully being a part of change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's really what these conversations for me are all about. This is it's very on point, because there was so much when I was litigating about the process that it was just like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
What there's, I could point to so many examples, but it just seemed a little absurd. So much of it seemed like a game, and just
Mm-hmm.
doing these things, just, I don't know, for us, for the lawyers,
Yeah.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
to make ourselves feel more important and give us a role. And
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, it just felt kind of silly to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
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 So I wonder, yeah, I think I'm curious, maybe before we move on to some other stuff, how does your work feel now for you? Like, do you feel like that you are aligned, like you found your spot that feels good and
Mm-hmm.
feels like you're doing work you're
Mm-hmm.
here to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an interesting and constantly evolving
Yeah, sure.
question for me, or answer for me. Um, In so many ways, yes. I
Yeah.
love teaching because it's very engaging. And so when you were talking about, the meeting with the client as the thing,
Yeah.
I think there's something really engaging about that requires you to be so present
Hmm.
when you're working directly with a client, whether it's on, virtually or in person, but even more so, I think in person, this relational aspect of the profession. And I get to do that in teaching as well with the students. If I'm not all about a performance, a classroom performance, then it's about connecting with humans
Yeah.
to help them meet their goals. There's something really very similar in that to what a lawyer might do representing an individual
Right.
client. Sometimes organizational can feel like that, but not very often.
Yeah.
And so, in some ways, that feels like exactly what, my core human is.
Yep.
The clinic is another aspect of that that's very aligned. I started doing that work because my dad is a military veteran, or his whole career was in the military.
Mm.
And the very first thing that I kind of encountered, even while I was still in law school, was his moving through the VA system.
Yeah.
And then when I got into the firm and started litigating, he had another thing come up and he needed my help. And so my law firm said, yes, you can do that as part of your work and we'll help you get trained in that. And so since then, that's been a large focus of my
Mm.
practice and it's become kind of the niche area that I have expertise in. And the work in that, the way we do it at the clinic, because we handle individual veterans' legal issues, is very relational. It's very engaging, and it allows for advocacy that makes a difference in that person's, existence on the earth, basically.
Yeah.
Like we get income, we get back pay that changes their world, that kind of thing.
Right.
Medical care that they desperately need, housing, these are all things that we're able to help with.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it's aligned. Um, that hasn't completely prevented burnout,
Yeah.
I will say,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
because there are parts of the job that I do that are not, and yeah, so it's a complicated question that I'm continue to move through,
Yeah.
continue to I'm working with a therapist right now on a single question, which is how do I not dread faculty meetings?
Yes.
And she kind of laughed, she's not in the legal world or academia. So that when that was my soul, like, let's work on this.
Yeah.
She came in to our first meeting, like, is this really what we're doing? And I said, it really is. The one thing I want to work on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there are parts of the world that are still really, challenging.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, what I love about, I mean, thanks for sharing and being so open about all this. I really appreciate
yeah,
it. Um, and I love I really like talking to people who realized the misalignment or recognized it to the point that they were able to get off the train,
yeah.
to use the metaphor. And it's so cool. That sounds like I find people that do that then um it's not clean. It's a messy process when you're willing to look at it and try to rebuild and try to put together a lifestyle and work and
Yeah.
profession that feels good. I'm finding it's often not clear and clean, and there's some messiness to it.
Mhm.
Whereas staying on the train is clean. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
right, because if you don't question it, it's just like, this is what I do, and I don't look at it, and
Mhm. Mhm.
there's maybe some. clarity to that, even if there isn't alignment or it doesn't feel good. And
That's
so
right.
I just love that you're piecing this together and
PC in
recognizing
a
it's
messy
yeah,
way.
and
Yeah.
that recognizing that it is like a lifelong. I'm realizing when you're willing to ask those tough questions, what do
Mhm.
I want to be doing? What I love doing? Where's my passion? Um, that's the state of being, and that's always shifting
Mhm.
and moving, and
Mhm.
so and it's
Yeah.
cool that you've been able to, you've still got the advocacy piece, but you've also got the teaching piece, and that
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, it's the reason that some of the hard things haven't driven me out of the job. I really
Yeah,
appreciate I have close friends who are lawyers, in various journeys of their own, but we've been together as close friends since law school, which was we started in 2001, and so we've been friends
yeah,
for a long time now, and they're not afraid of asking hard questions.
yeah.
And one, I feel like every time we get together, one of them says, "Are you happy though? Because sometimes you don't seem very happy." And we have a really good
Mm,
conversation about that. And part
yeah,
of what I say to her, or I have to this point, I mean, like I said, it's always evolving, is it's the teaching that I can't leave behind. Like, I
mm,
could see myself opening a shop that serves veterans,
yeah,
hanging a shingle, maybe drawing some former students into the work because they still do the work that we did in the clinic when they were here,
yeah,
engaging with colleagues across the country. I have a really great, strong network of veterans advocates. That's a possibility. I could see it
yeah,
happening, and I could see it being really great. And there's something about the teaching that I just can't leave behind.
yeah,
And that's important.
right,
That's really important for me to notice.
yes,
And the other great thing about academia, once you get into a secure position, which I'm in,
yeah,
um, is you can kind of make your way
mm,
in some ways. There are
yeah,
ways that it allows for creativity. And one of those ways for me right now is thinking about the clinic and how it might there's an opportunity to maybe shift the way we do our work into a more integrative and holistic approach. And
yeah,
wouldn't that be interesting, both for me professionally, but also for students to encounter while in law school?
yeah, yes, that's amazing. Um, and a great segue to the second part of of the conversation. And before we
Yeah.
move on from that, I just want to say what stood out to me most about what you just said was that you've got friends who are willing to
Mm.
ask you that question.
Yes.
Are you happy? And that's amazing. I mean, not everyone has that kind of support and friend group that or people in their life that are willing to um, push us. I mean, that
Mhm.
it's a crucial aspect of this kind of self reflection. you
It
know,
really is.
yeah,
Yeah. I wish that for everyone.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So, great. So I'm curious. I think what I have found is that the lawyers I encounter through the Center for Understanding and Conflict, in large part, are open to and searching for other ways to be lawyers. I
Mhm.
think there's a
Yeah.
commonality amongst the people that get attracted to that program.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious for you, what attracted you to going to that mediation training?
Well, a few years ago, I got connected with a program called Cognitively Based Compassion Training, or CBCT. And it's a really interesting, totally unrelated to law at this point, um, program that takes the approach to compassion, um, it's a more scientific approach to compassion, in that they actually study cognitive training and how it can bend a person toward a more compassionate worldview and
Mm,
daily view. And so
yes.
it can change through practice. I mean, they're very practice based. Obviously, a cognitive training would be a daily practice.
Mhm.
And through that, can you start to, your thought processes start to shift into a more compassionate framework. And so
Yeah.
expanding your concern about the people around you, expanding your concern about what's happening in the world, um, being able to do that in a healthy way that's sustainable.
Yeah.
And so it was really great program. I ended up going through it as a participant and feeling it brought so much benefit into my life that I asked the teacher, what else?
Yeah.
Is there like an advanced program? And he
Yeah.
said, yeah, there's a small group. We're going to meet, for the next semester. Do you want to be a part of that? So I said, yes. So we're in this small, more intensive, and he ended up inviting two of us to do teacher certification. And so I
Mm.
went down, it's based out of Emory
Okay.
University, and I went down there to their teacher certification program. And it's kind of a long process that involves, a longer weekly class that you engage in and do all sorts of, you create your own materials and things like that. And you teach and get feedback and
Yeah.
I'm at the tail end of that process now. I'm in the last stages of it where I need to do um, a class where someone observes me. And then I'll be fully certified in that.
Yeah.
And so, what happened is I was working on that at the same time Malin was starting to enter into this integrative law area, and we were
Yeah.
talking,
Mm-hmm.
and she came upon um, the CUC event in
Yeah.
California and asked, would you go with me? It looks like there's some overlap with the
Yeah.
concepts here.
Yeah.
And so we looked at the materials, and so I ended up saying, yeah, I think we should do this. I'm really interested in the overlap with CBCT, but also how it all connects with lawyering.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that's how I ended up at that event. And of course, there was substantial overlap or alignment in that with my work in CBCT. So,
Yeah. All right. So um, there's all these studies out there, which I'm sure you're aware of, about how law school impacts the brain, and
mhm.
the traditional version of law school that you and I went through anyway is the opposite of what you just explained.
Right.
CBCT being about, right?
hmm
It's limiting your. It's a limiting process. I've felt like it kind of it brings your mind into focus on these very narrow questions. Issue spotting, facts, analysis, conclusions. We've got this equation that we all get beaten into our brains
That's right.
about how to analyze someone's problem, and it does not
hmm
leave much room for compassion or understanding or opening up to others' perspectives and stuff. How are you merging your training in CBCT and with understanding base model of conflict with your role as a professor? How are those?
hmm
I'm so fascinated to know how those are interfacing.
Yes, it's in progress.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
unfolding.
sure.
But I have been thinking about this since the CUC event and then my continued CBCT work because one of the things that I think happens is that with that narrowing that you described, it cuts off a part of the human who's becoming a lawyer
Yeah.
while also cutting off a part of what we can do for our clients.
Mm.
And so it's like this um it's like this double whammy, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a silly way of saying it, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's just like, it's not good in multiple ways, I guess. And so thinking about that, I think I think a law student needs to be able to do certain tasks
Yeah.
in order to be maybe employable, in order to enter what they call the discourse community of
Mm.
litigation or of business transactions or things like that, and be able to communicate in a way that the decision maker um, can hear and
Yeah.
understand and
Yeah. You
interpret.
you have to be able to speak the language,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said it in 70 words and you said it in just a few, which is pretty typical of me. But so then thinking of that, how do I as a professor, and so I don't know if you know this, but I teach both the veterans disability law, but also legal writing. I think you did know that.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
legal writing aspect of it, how do I teach them the analytical framework that
Yeah.
allows them to speak the language and also acknowledge, and there's this surrounding environment that you you need to see.
Yeah.
You need to start seeing and understanding. And by the way, it connects with your human self that you brought
Yeah.
in the door that I don't want you to leave behind. I want you to keep it. And I need you to see it and be aware of it as well as this limited skill. And I think you
Yeah.
can do both. You can be able to do a killer IRAC in writing
Yeah.
and also be able to sit down with a client and actually listen and hear and
Yeah.
be present. You can do both of those things.
Yeah.
And I want you to do both. I feel like this is a bigger, better tool belt for you as a lawyer. And
Yeah.
so I had Malin come in this spring to my legal writing class. We did an exercise about client letters
Mm-hmm.
and advice letters specifically. And I had them do it a few different ways. And what Malin brought in was, what would it look like if we did this in an integrative, more of an integrative law, more of a holistic law way? And it was awesome. She talked to the class for a class period, and then we rewrote the client advice letter that they had done
Mm.
with that kind of approach. And so they could see a before after, a very, limited, very buttoned up, very CYA letter, and a very kind of a shift of tone and focus to problem solving, to collaboration, to
Yeah.
what are your values and what are you trying to achieve? And I think students found that extremely valuable. I had so many students come to me and say, um, I hadn't thought about or heard about this idea, this way of lawyering before, and now that seems like what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's power, right?
That's
That's
huge.
amazing.
Yeah. I'm getting chills.
I know. I did too. I was like, really? Woo,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, that's
Right.
so cool.
Yeah.
Well, how cool to be able to do to see the difference in real time on a,
Yes.
like I had a similar experience, but I did it without any guidance. I was just like, there's got to be a better way to communicate with people
Yeah.
than how I
Yeah.
learned how to write, and
Yeah.
it happens slowly over time. But to see it on the same topic to the same person, conventional versus integrative,
Right.
how that's amazing. How cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think legal writing, there's a way that that's a perfect place to do this kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
Because it involves analysis, it involves organization, but it involves um, communication in a way that can be shifted and moved in really meaningful ways. And so to have them even start to experiment with it, I think is really, there's some potential there.
Yeah.
Um, I talked about, not this last year, but the year before, in connection with CBCT, I talked to a whole big group of law professors at the AALS, American Association of Law Schools conference, about how even the way you organize a document can lack compassion,
Yeah, right.
right? Or can be compassionate. And so is there a way of thinking about the organization, even of the document itself or the page itself, or how you make the information accessible or inaccessible, as compassion or lack thereof?
Yes.
And so legal writing there's a lot of potential.
I mean, so much of this comes down to communication and choice of words. I mean, that's
Yeah,
ultimately, in my view, what we're trained at. That's what makes a lawyer lawyers. We've been
yeah,
trained in a form of communication that allows us to write or speak persuasively or
yep,
analytically or a combination of those. Um, and it's shocking how little training I mean little, I mean zero training I got on compassion or understanding or mixing that in a way that we don't come across like law robots where we just speak
right,
this language and
right,
nobody else gets to understand it. And
yeah,
um and yeah, there's just and it's the way we communicate and the words we choose to use or not use. I guess, you maybe we tie this back to the beginning of the conversation that like the history of how lawyers have communicated for decades, if not centuries,
hmm
um, really feeds into society's view of us and the expectations, and all the conditioning around the legal system, all the
hmm
things that have led to this point where everything we talked about earlier, the demands of the profession and all of those
yep,
things, you could probably trace those back to how we've communicated and been trained to
yep,
communicate that
yep.
has led to why it's such a difficult job.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah,
um,
and I think um the I think the way things are moving right now is so interesting for this, because with generative AI on the scene,
yes,
there's all this talk about, does that replace, right? And some of the presentations I've been going to as a legal writing professor and a clinician are these people talking about, there's a duty of efficiency.
yeah,
And so you can't ignore the efficiency that generative AI offers. You have to
yeah,
learn it, you have to be adept with it for the good of your client, right? And there's a lot to say about the potential access to justice improvements that could happen with generative AI.
yeah,
And I think that can be true alongside it being not true, right?
yeah,
Alongside it making the legal profession less accessible and more dangerous.
yeah. More
And
expensive,
so
more, yeah,
more
right,
expensive,
yeah,
yeah, more injurious to the environment.
yeah,
There are ways that all of these can be true, and that kind of complexity, in my mind, requires humans. And
yes,
so my thought is no, right? It doesn't take us out of it actually makes us way more important. And the idea of integrative law, um, yeah, the answer has to be a resounding no, right?
yeah,
The whole idea of that is humans connecting with humans.
that's right,
And so that's where, yes, it can help you find better wording, for sure. That is true, but it's the human to human interaction that's going to get to the heart of the thing,
yeah,
find the values, find the alignment, find the purpose, um, focused journey forward. This is not going to be as wonderful as Claude is. It's not going to be Claude doing the thing, right?
yeah, that's
It
right.
might help you get there, but so these are also things I think we need to be talking about with students and with each other
Yeah, I've been saying the same thing. I think I'm trying to take an optimistic view to AI and in
Yeah.
relationship to this conversation, particularly, and say that, yeah, like AI probably, if it can't already, uh, it will very soon be able to write better briefs than most lawyers can,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
do it in minutes instead
Right.
of days
Right.
or weeks.
Hmm.
It can organize evidence faster. It can access
Yeah.
information more quickly. It does all these things that we used to do and spend hours and hours and hours doing. Um, the beauty of that is then we just get to show up as humans and we no
Yeah.
longer have to do the robotic
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
can now be performed, and we can actually, it will allow us and give more value to us just being with clients as human beings and connecting
Yeah.
with them and
Yeah.
performing the human elements of the job, which I think are going to become even more important because of
Hmm.
AI.
Hmm.
That's the optimistic view. We don't need to talk
It's
about
an
the pessimistic one.
it's an optimistic view. Yeah. But I think
Yeah.
that's worth it to have some
Yeah.
optimism and
Yep.
also to keep it complex and not oversimplify it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, we're over time, but if you don't mind, I have
Okay.
two more questions for you. If you've
Uh,
got time, or if you need to
oh
go, that's
yeah,
fine too.
I mean, whatever you need is I'm
Wonderful.
completely flexible.
Awesome. It's just been such a good conversation. I've
Yeah,
lost track of
I
time.
agree. I enjoy
Um,
it.
yeah, so the two or three final questions, we'll see where this goes, that I've been trying to ask all of my guests. The first one is, I chose the title for this podcast, knowing it would be somewhat provocative for some people who haven't thought about this stuff. Seeing
Hmm.
lawyer and healer in the same phrase for some people, I think,
Hmm.
is a little shocking or
For sure.
surprising or
Yeah.
whatever. So I'm just curious, for you, where you're at in your career today, what when you hear that lawyers as healers, what does that bring up for you?
Hmm.
What does
Hmm.
it mean to you? Just what's
Hmm.
your general reaction to that
Hmm.
phrase?
Yeah, I think it brings up a lot. I think for me, having been so intertwined with the medical profession due to my own health,
Yeah.
um, there's something about the idea of a healer being able to come in and diagnose, identify, but it being, as I've learned over the years, not a simple thing. Healing is not a simple thing. Some people think it's I identify the thing, take it out, and then you're great. And that's not how this works in almost any context. My youngest sister ended up going into the medical profession, and she's what's called um, an interventional radiologist.
Mm,
Um, she's a surgeon and a radiologist, so she comes in and does like removes the aneurysm or um, does the biopsy or takes this tiny thing tumor out or whatever, using radiological tools as well and to navigate. And it's um, it's amazing. It's kind of magical. And yet she would tell you it's not a simple thing. Even, I mean, even setting aside the skill you need to do these extremely intricate procedures, it's not a simple thing because it's more than just removing the issue,
yeah.
right? It's more
Yeah.
than just taking that out. It's a conversation about what it is that you're trying to do. What do you have to do? What are you trying to do? And what does that mean for you moving forward? And so in the cancer world, they talk about living with cancer. And I
Mm.
remember hearing that at the beginning and thinking, what are you? Nope.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's my answer to that. No,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing that. And yet that's exactly what happens
Mm.
because it's not as simple as just removing the problem. And I just bring that into the idea of lawyer as healer. It's not simple, right? It is complex and it is a conversation, an interaction, a collaboration. It is identifying, yes, these things that need to be addressed, and then also talking with the client that you're trying to help about are there priorities? If you
Yeah.
have 5, are there priorities? what rises to the top? What does it look like when we get on the other side?
Yeah.
Is there another side, or are you going to be essentially living with cancer, right? Are you going to be
Yeah.
living with some of these things in your life forever? What things can you live with? What can't you? Because, right, in the medical
Yeah.
profession, there are certain things you can't,
Right.
right? You got to address the thing. Criminal defense lawyering will be like this. There are certain things that you can't
Yeah.
live with, right?
That's right. That's right.
Um, but yeah, leaning into the complexity of it, I think that's where lawyers as healers comes up for me, is not oversimplifying it.
Yes, I love that. I think lawyers, well, I'll speak for myself. I felt myself really noticing the difference between hard work and working hard, which
Oh
I
yeah.
think gets to this a little bit, which is
Mhm.
doing this kind of integrative law or a more holistic practice where you're asking the questions you just asked. Um, and having those really difficult conversations with clients, spending the time with them, and really getting to know them and their values and what they care about. Um, that is hard work. It's hard
Yes.
work for the lawyer. It's hard work for the client. It is
Yes.
inner work. It means you got to look at yourself and think about your role in all of this and
Yep.
the bigger picture. And that's hard. It's hard. They're hard conversations to have. They're deeply uncomfortable.
Yep.
Um, it's hard.
It is.
um, Working hard, I've found tends to be where we go to because it's easier, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's easier to go work 12 hours on a motion for
Mhm.
summary judgment or 60 or 80 hours on something than it is to step back sometimes and say, all right, what are the things we're not thinking about, or what are
Yep.
how can we think about this differently or change our perspective or shift our focus or whatever. It's easier to avoid those hard questions and just go work really
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
lawyers have kind of fallen into that trap a little bit,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
covered up the complexity and the nuance of what we're really here to do with just hours of work.
Hours.
Um,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, wow. If Malin was here, she'd be like, preach, man, because she knows my history with this, which is I
Yeah,
was like, you know, put your butt in the chair and stay there. And that's how you get where you want to go. That is for sure how I was
yeah.
for so long, and not really looking up at all to say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this thing? Yeah. Mhm.
I think every lawyer suffers from some version of that. I think it's
Mhm.
baked into us in law school. I think if you get into law school and you're going that route, you already have a predisposition to this way of thinking and
Absolutely.
being,
Yeah.
and lots of perfectionism and type A
Oh, yeah.
personalities and all the things that we all
Mhm.
have in common.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
like we talked about earlier, it just snowballs. Then you're done with law school, then you're in the bar, and then you're in the job, and it all of a sudden 10
One
years
thing
goes by
after
and you're like,
another.
whoa,
Yep.
where am I? What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Mhm.
I love
Mhm.
that. I love that perspective.
Mhm.
Um, Next question is, um, any advice you have for anyone listening, particularly lawyers or law students who are questioning the traditional system, or
Mhm.
let's keep it focused on lawyers that are in positions where maybe you've been in big firm. Wait,
Right.
you look up one day and what am I doing?
Mhm.
Any advice for people that find themselves in that spot?
Yeah. Ooh, advice would just be, look up. You know? Yeah, I think, to the extent well, and the answer is you can. You
Mm,
can pause. That is
yeah,
absolutely possible.
yeah,
And
yes,
I think it's possible for every person who is in a big law firm
yeah,
to pause, make that happen, take the hit if that's what has to happen for you to take the pause,
yeah,
and then spend that time really trying to connect with the reasons for what you're doing, because I do have people in my life who have stayed in litigation practice and have sustained it in a sort of increasingly healthy way
Yeah.
because they paused, because they connected with a meaning to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like for you, I think that's the thing, right? You have to do. It's not popular.
Mm-hmm.
It's not efficient.
Yeah.
My new mantra lately has been, it's not efficient, it's important. I just did a whole talk on that at Mizzou a few months ago around veterans law, because what my very unpopular talk was, I actually think we should be thinking more holistically rather than limiting, because the popular thing right now in veterans work and veterans clinics is not just limited scope, but even more limited scope. Like, we need to be real experts on these very discrete things and just do those things for as many people as we can.
Right.
And my idea was, I actually think we might need to be going the opposite direction. And the idea of it is not popular because it's not efficient. And
Yeah.
so my mantra was, it's not efficient, it's important.
Yeah.
And that's what you were just saying. And I think that's true for a person in big law too. The big pressure in that position is to be as efficient as possible. And what I think you need to do is shift away from that into, it's not efficient, it's important.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing
Yeah.
because of this reason, which is important. There's this old book called The War of Art. Okay, well, I'll just say out loud, there are certain aspects of this book that do not age well, and I'm
Okay.
not responsible for those.
Yeah. Fair.
But there are also pieces of the book that are so important.
Mm,
And one of them is that the thing that you are meant to do will present the most resistance. And ever since kind of coming to terms with that idea, I've paid really close attention when something kind of lights a fire inside of me at the same time as presenting a massive amount of resistance.
yeah.
Sometimes resistance is important because you probably shouldn't go down that path. Okay. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's important because it signals that's actually the path,
Yeah.
right? That's the one.
Yeah.
And I think part of what's happening right now in the legal profession is this idea of this moralizing and heightening of efficiency at the expense of serving the people that we are serving.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes to all of that. I mean, man, I've been working on this a solo episode that's taking much longer than I wanted it to, but I just went on this. We just did this long road trip up the West Coast to Vancouver Island, and
Nice. I love that.
yeah, saw the amount of destruction up there, the
Mm.
ecological. I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely
Yep.
amazing. I loved every minute of it. But there were all of these kind of like ecological disasters on the way, like the logging and all
Yeah.
these species that have been wiped out. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you see it because there's so much life up in that region.
Mm-hmm.
You really notice it when there's not, when
Yeah.
it's been
Oh, yeah.
destroyed, and and that's the same thing we're talking about in terms of these systems and efficiency and monetizing things. And we're just trying to get billable hours to make more money. And I felt the same energy of, let's say, clear cutting a forest.
Mm-hmm.
That same energy is present in litigation,
Yeah.
of this efficient extraction from
Mm-hmm.
a conflict. We're just trying to extract resources
Mm-hmm.
instead of pausing and saying, hey, like, wait a second, like, what are all the options here? And how can we
Yeah.
be better stewards of our fellow human beings and our
Mm-hmm.
communities, and think about the big picture instead of just how many billable hours can I get out of this case and how
Yep.
quickly can I get it dismissed or whatever the goal is. So I just had to say that because that's been
Yeah.
really on my mind lately.
I think that's a really good connection to make between seeing the ways that we harm,
Yeah.
through kind of progress and efficiency for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Final question.
Yeah.
In this kind of semi-lightning round of questions at the end. As lightning as two lawyers can be about
Yeah,
questioning and
totally.
questions and answers.
Totally.
And I'm really excited to ask you this one because you're in a law school setting and seeing the new generation,
Yeah.
and you're open to these ideas, and you're bringing them into the space. What gives you hope about the future of the legal profession and legal industry?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do have a lot of hope looking at the students. One thing I've noticed is that law students, this newest generation of law students, are very skeptical about things like generative AI, um,
Hmm.
and there's a part of that that's dangerous because of the reasons we talked about, because there are some good things that come from it, and
Yeah.
so an absolute rejection of the tool might not be an option in the profession.
Right.
There's a part of it that's really hopeful, though, because
Yeah.
they're willing to critique, they're willing to question in ways that are non-traditional from what we, came up in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important for change. And the
Yeah.
fact that they have skepticism and are willing to voice skepticism is our opportunity. That's the hope I have, because that also means maybe they won't look at traditional litigation in the same way. Maybe they'll be skeptical of some of those things too, or the work habits of the traditional lawyer in the same way,
Yeah.
or the relationship you can have with a client in the same way, because skepticism sometimes can lead to just curiosity, an open mind, and change. And that's really, we need that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing that law professors have in spades is the opportunity for hope, because
Yeah.
every new year you get a new crop of people
Yeah.
who are coming in with all kinds of hope. Why else would they be here? You know? And so, yeah. And I also think that generative AI is putting the question to us that needs to be asked, which is, how important is efficiency? And
Yeah.
in what ways does it improve the system and the people in the system? And in what ways does it harm? And how, that's you've heard the idea of never wasting a good crisis. And I think that's exactly what
Yeah.
we need to do right now, is use this
Yeah.
as an opportunity for self-reflection as a profession.
I think that's kind of getting at what I was talking about earlier too, which is just like, I hope this makes us all look in the mirror and say, where do I bring value to this profession? And it's
That's right.
my humanity.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
answer to
my
that question.
humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That
And
is
so
my
how
value.
do we bring more of that in to counter
Yeah.
what's happening, on the technology side?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and complement it, right?
That's right.
Lawyers as healers, integrative law, all these things isn't about being anti-litigation or anti-legal system, or that it's about adding value. Like, all
Yeah.
these things are great and they're important, and litigation needs to happen, and it serves this vital function of our democracy and our
Yep.
individual rights, and all
Mhm.
of the things are balancing power. But we can make it better, you know,
We can make it better. Yeah.
which is the same with AI. Like, it's got
Mhm.
pros and cons, but we can make it. We have control over it. At least
That's right.
right
It's a
now we do.
tool. That's right. Yeah, right now we do,
Yeah.
right, yeah. I haven't really confronted the rest of that story,
Yeah,
but
well, we'll leave
yeah,
that for other
yeah,
professions to figure out.
yeah.
Um, well, this has been an amazing conversation. I wanted to say what it really gives me a lot of hope is people like you,
Oh.
who are bringing these ideas into law schools. I mean, that to
Mhm.
me, in my conversations with lawyers who are not open to these ideas or who have not thought about them before, it's shocking how we talked about speaking the same language. Lawyers like that, I've literally had lawyers respond to me when I've corresponded with them in an integrative way, and written these letters. I actually had a lawyer tell me, "You're speaking Greek to me. I don't understand what this
Oh,
means."
yes. Yeah.
Um, and I had to repeat it 3 different times, and at the end, he was like, "I don't I you it's a different I don't know what you're talking about." Um,
Yeah. Yep.
and that moment was really shocking to me. It was very eye-opening. I just
Mhm.
thought everyone else would kind of come along with it, and
Yep.
it helped me. It was a good reality check and helped me
Mhm.
realize that, what really needs to happen is we need a new generation of lawyers who have heard this stuff and understand it, even if
That's
they're
right.
not practicing it, that it
Mhm.
won't be the first time they hear it from somebody.
Yeah.
So it gives me
Yeah.
a great deal of hope to hear these stories about law school and law
Mhm.
students being exposed to this stuff and getting excited about it. And
Yep.
that's where the change, I mean, you are where the change is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that's
I think
amazing.
so, and we need more people like you in law schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Right.
I think. I know Malin's teaching, and I
Yeah.
know several other people in the field are teaching, and that
Yeah.
just needs to happen more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Hillary, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah.
Is there any way, anything you'd like to promote or share, or like where people can find you if they want to reach out?
Well, they can definitely find me at the University of Montana, the School of Law here, and I'd be happy to talk with anybody more about this.
Hmm.
I would say if you're interested, I think the CBCT program out of Emory University, I see some real potential there for lawyers and
Mm.
law students, and plan to start bringing that into my teaching more and hopefully even my lawyering more. So you can find more about that on the Emory University website.
Awesome. I'm gonna go check that out. And
Yeah,
it sounds like a way to talk about compassion that will resonate with lawyers, and it doesn't sound
exactly.
too woo woo or whatever.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's a bridge. It
Yeah.
bridges. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's super
Yeah.
important. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure and joy, and I appreciate you being here with me.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Hillary.
Okay. See you.